Hey guys, it's Tamara coming back at you with another video. Welcome back to my channel. We're gonna go ahead and conclude our conversation on disruptive behavior problems. And I'm actually going to talk a little bit about emotionally detached parents. I encourage you to check in the description box below. I have two videos that I did on this topic. One was specifically about family dynamics and parents and how they can sometimes negatively influence their child to engage in disruptive behaviors. But then I also talked about how parents can approach schools and what they can look for in their child who's disruptive in the school. And so in this video today, I'm going to talk a little bit about emotionally detached parents and some of these signs of emotionally detached parents. I'm of the firm belief that when kids come into the world, they are constantly looking for emotional and psychological support, right? If you think about the birthing experience, it really is an emotional and psychological experience, not just for the mom or the father, but also for the baby. And so because of that, I think children are naturally and biologically geared toward desiring some kind of emotional and psychological support from their parent. It's just a given. And when a child doesn't get that, they end up struggling. And a lot of times, disruptive behaviors result from that. So the benefits for you in this video today is that we're going to talk about some of the signs of emotionally detached parent and what that looks like for you, or what that would look like for you. And these are examples that I'm going to give you a list of examples of behaviors to look out for in a parent who's emotionally detached. I do want to highlight, however, that there are a lot of parents who struggle with the things that I'm going to talk about, and it doesn't mean that they are emotionally detached. But what it could mean is that they are not able to be what they need to be in the moment or for this time period. They may need to grow and mature. They may need to get better in treatment. They may need to, have something as natural and raw as a reality check. Whatever the issue may be, the listing of behaviors of an emotionally detached parent that I'm going to give you doesn't always apply to the people that you think it does. So I just want to throw that out there as a disclaimer. But let's go ahead and jump in. I did list some things as an example of an emotionally detached parent. And I'm actually going to splice this video in half. So you're going to see me in two different settings because this is going to be a pretty lengthy discussion, okay? And this is just to kind of help us wrap up our topic on disruptive behavior disorders. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and jump in. So what I mean by emotionally detached parents is that a parent who's emotionally detached and psychologically detached basically means that the parent is having a very hard time connecting with their child. They're having a hard time being the things that their child needs them to be. They're also having a very hard time managing the parenting relationship with a child, right? A lot of times the emotionally detached parent is unavailable physically, emotionally, and psychologically, right? They remove themselves from the parenting role. They remove themselves from the emotional burden of being a parent, right? All they want is their life, their emotions, their needs, their desires, their wants, right? They hardly ever, if ever, focus on the child. So the first thing that I suggest that you look for in an emotionally detached parent is rigidity. A parent who's emotionally detached from a child may display rigid and inflexible behaviors. They're not going to bend, they're not going to change, they're not going to grow, they're not going to bend their life, bend their wants, bend their desires for their child, right? Instead, they want the child to adjust to their world. They're not interested in adjusting anything in their world to help and appease their child. It's something that they just simply don't want to do. Think of a child who doesn't want to go to bed at night, right? You may read them a bedtime story. You may rock them to sleep. You may sing them to sleep, right? You might give them melatonin before bedtime. You may try hot tea or hot cocoa before bedtime. Whatever the case is, the child simply doesn't want to go to bed, right? They don't want to adjust to your rules. They don't want to adjust to the normal flow of things, right? They're kids. Same thing with an emotionally detached parent. They're not going to be flexible. They're not going to change anything. They're going to remain the same. The child better adjust his or her way of being in their world. It's a very narcissistic view of their parenting. Okay, so that's one. The next one is a low stress tolerance. So being a parent is stressful, right? You have a lot of responsibilities. You know, kids come up with behavioral problems, emotional and psychological problems. There's bullying, there's school, there's, you know, a fear that your child's not going to fit in, that your child's not going to adjust well. Parents are in a stressful situation when they bring a child into this world. It's inevitable, right? Some parents have a very low stress tolerance level. They're not going to change. They're not going to adjust their emotions or their psychological well-being for the needs of the child, right? So because of that, they may explode. They may lash out in anger. They may slam doors. They may be physically aggressive. They might be abusive, right? They might be neglectful. Things may be so bad between the parent and the child that Child Protective Services needs to get involved, right? So low stress tolerance means that the parent is incapable of managing stress. And so therefore, they end up taking things out on the child or lashing out or doing things that they should not be doing. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3 is emotional instability with aggression. Again, it's that low stress tolerance. I can't handle being a parent. I'm not going to adjust my life and my worldview for this child, right? I need my needs to be met. I want my needs to be met. So parents who are in that mindset most likely are going to lash out emotionally. Okay, the next one is poor boundaries with the child. In situations where kids are being neglected or emotionally or psychologically abused, there is often an immature, emotionally unavailable parent who refuses to put up parental boundaries. The child is more like their sister or their brother or their pal or their friend, right? Not the son, not the daughter. That's my friend over there, that's my pal. You might also notice in the relationship between the parent and the child, this friendship that's so inappropriate, right? I've seen situations where the parent often comes into session and they are dressed similarly to the child or the teenager. They giggle at the child, laugh at the child, joke with the child in a way that makes it look like they're pals as opposed to just a parent and a child. I think it's okay for parents to be their kid's friend, but with boundaries and to a limit. And unfortunately for emotionally detached or unavailable parents, that's impossible for them because again, you have to consider the first 2, low stress tolerance and rigidity. They don't have the ability to manage their stress, so they drop down from parent to friend. Or they refuse to adjust anything, so they're very rigid and they refuse to be flexible and be a parent. Okay, the next one is unstable relationships. Most emotionally unavailable parents have unstable adult relationships, which means they don't even know how to manage their relationship with their child because they don't have the practice in their adult relationships, right? A lot of times emotionally unavailable parents lack the skills that they need to deal with their adult relationships. They're impulsive, they're unstable, they might be pathological liars, they might be confusing and perplexing, and so those same behaviors often play out in the parent-child relationship, and it makes the relationship between the adult and the child very rocky. Okay, the next one is attention seeking. Emotionally unavailable parents may engage in attention seeking, right? So fishing for accolades, looking for other people to applaud them for things that they've done, right? They only do good things for the child in order to get praise, or they only do good things for the child in order to be acknowledged. Think of Munchausen syndrome. I never can figure out how to pronounce it. I'm going to put it right up here for you so that you can see a definition of it, right? Munchausen syndrome by proxy, if that's how you pronounce it. Consider that malingering disorder, I should say. It's basically when a parent will do things to their child, make them sick, interfere with their IVs if they're in the hospital, put cuts and scrapes on their kids, or do whatever it takes to have to become the focal point or the attention, the one with the attention in the relationship between the parent and the child, right? So I'll give you an example of this. There was a recent case of an African-American family where the mother had constantly taken her son to doctors for surgeries and very abrasive tests. unfortunately, doctors started to become suspicious of the situation and began to watch. Well, as the story goes, the mom became suspect and Child Protective Services got involved. They also found evidence that she was guilty of poisoning her child for the simple fact of gaining attention from medical providers and being viewed as the poor, pitiful parent whose child is constantly sick. So that's kind of the level of attention seeking that I'm referring to with an emotionally detached parent. They're very immature, they're very rigid, they're very self-consumed and narcissistic to the point of excluding the child completely. That goes into my next one, which is careless. Okay, a lot of unavailable and emotionally unavailable parents are careless. They really do not care, and it's hard for us as caring people, I'm sure, and maybe as you in your role as a parent or a teacher, an educator, a husband, whatever you may be, it might be hard for you to imagine that a parent can be that uncaring to harm their child or to seek for attention, but it does happen and it is true. All right, the next one is a lot of emotionally unavailable parents are more engaged in social activities than they should be. They're engaged in more social activities than they should be as a parent, right? Their social interests, their social needs and wants comes before the needs and wants of the child at all times, okay? So they may be more interested in dating, they may be more interested in hanging out or partying than actually helping their child. The next one is having a social and home persona. I've had kids come into me and say, Ms. Tiamra, my mom is very different at home than she is in the social setting. At school, she's great. At home, she's awful. So parents who are emotionally unavailable know how to turn on like a light switch what they need to turn on in public to look a certain way, and then they turn it off when they go home. It's very calculating and very manipulative. Doesn't communicate with schools or other parents. Okay, that's another one. Emotionally unavailable parents do not communicate in the ways that they need to. They often put themselves first. They don't put their kids first, right? Remember, they're rigid. They have a low stress tolerance. They don't want to stress themselves out. So they remove themselves from the equation by not communicating with schools when needed, when not communicating with other adults when their kid is in trouble. They might give a little, but they usually hold back. And it's very, very obvious. All right, so keep that in mind. The other one is pushing the child to become independent before his or her time. And a lot of times that's selfish as well. That basically says, I don't want the pressure of having to be a parent. So I'm going to push you to become independent. Go ahead, make your own breakfast, make your own dinner, stay over there while I stay over here and be myself. It's the saddest thing for some kids. And it often leads to neglect, which leads to Child Protective Services getting involved. That's how severe it can get. All right, guys, so thanks so much for visiting me today. As always, I encourage you to give this video a thumbs up. When you do that, it pushes the video to the top of the search results and it gives other people like you access to the video. When you hit the like button or you hit the subscribe button, it kind of makes us more visible in the search results, right? Us being you who may have commented or watched the video, and me as the one who has delivered the information to you. It makes us more visible in the search results in YouTube, so then that way other people can gain access to the video. So there's definitely a method to my madness when I ask you guys for a thumbs up every video. All right, guys, stay tuned for the next tips that I'm going to give you. I think it's about 4 or 5 more left, and I want to talk a little bit more extensively about them. So stay tuned. I will be back with the next video. But until then, guys, I wish you well. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.